There's no avoiding it, as it seems as if some mandates are making a comeback. Oh yes, guys, I unfortunately said mandates. And with that, I want to say, Canada, get your masks ready and prepare your arms too.
With the latest COVID-19 shot now approved, this is the advice from Health Canada.
Individuals who are 5 years of age and older should receive 1 dose of the vaccine, regardless of the COVID-19 vaccination history.
The Moderna vaccine, along with 2 others still under review, including Pfizer, no longer include the original strain of the virus. Instead, they specifically target a current version of the Omicron variant that's expected to circulate this fall and winter.
In the last few weeks, we have started to see an increase in COVID-19 indicators across many areas of the country, including hospitalizations.
The most recent data show COVID-19 killing 48 Canadians in a week. And while far from the peak last year, there are still about 2,165 Canadians lying in hospital beds with the virus, an uptick from the previous week.
Man, oh man, I can just see the headlines right now. And the reason why I'm talking about this is that I want you guys to read in between the lines with their messaging, all right? And honestly, some parts of what they're saying are pretty much direct to the point. So you don't even really need to guess as far as what they're trying to say here. So check out what Theresa Tam, Chief Public Health Officer of Canada, said a few months ago. This is when she was asked about masks and their usage.
Dr. Tam, just what's your recommendation on masking at this point in the pandemic?
Well, we know that layers of protection, when done consistently together, can reduce transmission and spread. As I said in my update, we're at a relatively steady state now in terms of cases, hospitalizations, and quite low levels of ICUs and death, which puts us in a relatively good position. However, COVID is still very prevalent. And so you can look at wastewater surveillance, you can look at the other lab tests, and over 3,000, I think, people are still in the hospital each day as with testing positive for COVID, which means that, I think depending on your risk factors and personal circumstances and the context of which you're gathering, for example, it's still recommended that you take precautions. And the NACI recommendation on booster doses for the highest risk.
Y'all know that guy beside her was just sweating bullets because he didn't have a mask on. And before I even show you guys what their latest recommendations are with their masking, please help me by spreading the word on this by just smashing the like button and by subscribing to the channel. I totally appreciate that, you guys. Now, you guys are fully aware that while this is happening in Canada, it's not impossible to reach our shores. You know what I'm saying, right? So yeah, what's the latest on masks now in Canada?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to take note. You're all masking, which is lovely to see, of course, but most government ministers are not now. Most MPs are not. Most people on the street are not masking. Is there any specific guidance on that going forward at this point?
Yes, Theresa Tam. So it is a layer of protection. We hope people have developed the habit to be able to use masks as needed during the respiratory virus season, not just for COVID, but for all the other respiratory pathogens that will be transmitted around this time. So I do think now is the time to get your masks ready if you don't already have them. In our own particular context, we certainly in our area, there's been an uptick in some of the COVID-19 indicators. For me personally, there have been cases around, even my work colleagues. So that's one of the reasons why we are wearing masks today.
So, okay, let's go ahead and break this down, all right? So first off, nothing says you're an unbiased reporter more than praising people who are masking up in 2023. I just got to get that out of the way, right? I mean, really, lovely to see, huh? So next up, he says that while these people are masked up, people that walk the streets remain maskless. I mean, like, what the heck is up with that, right? Tam then answers by saying that she hopes that people have developed the habit to wear a mask. Now, first of all, people are already not wearing these masks. What makes you think that they would suddenly develop a habit of wearing it again? And did you notice what she said about respiratory pathogens?
These are not just for COVID, but for all the other respiratory pathogens that will be transmitted around this time.
Hello, is there a respiratory virus like release happening anytime soon? Now, Call me a conspiracy theorist, but that's just kind of shady if you ask me. But sure, maybe it is about viruses that are, still in season, but still, weird way to say it. Very weird. So I decided to look a little bit further into this person, and look what I found. She's in the WHO website. Nothing quite like having your face on the World Health Organization to spur confidence, you know what I mean? Really just kind of put your mind at ease. Now, for people who may be new to the channel, this is a great example of sarcasm. And just to set your mind at ease, the same person back in 2010 said that if there are people who are non-compliant in the event of a disease outbreak, there are powers that should be provided to the law, in this case the police, for them to quarantine people and keep them holed up. Now, she says that this would actually be mandatory and that tracking bracelets would be helpful. Wow. Oh yeah, a tracking bracelet would make people that much more compliant. Again, that's sarcasm for you. But the best part is that she says that if people think at the end of it that they've overreacted in any way in their response to the virus, that this could be handled after the fact. Seriously? So yeah, arrest people, put them in lockdown, and if the data shows that we went a little bit overboard, well, we can just kind of say sorry afterwards. I mean, can you freaking believe that? But of course, this didn't happen with the C-19 virus. I think she felt enough backlash in 2010 to realize just how many people would revolt if, with the very idea of having their location tracked 24/7. Are you down to get tracked? And y'all know that I have some visibility when it comes to dislikes on YouTube, and well, the videos where we see her have hundreds to thousands of dislikes. It's actually unbelievable. And just to kind of close this one out with something here at home, let's see what Dr. Fauci had to say about masks after the dust has settled, shall we?
The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journalist Mayan Damasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about the N95 masks as opposed to the lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, he said. Well, what about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual. When you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. But when you talk about as an individual basis of someone protecting themselves or protecting themselves from spreading it to others, there's no doubt that there are many studies that show that there is an advantage. When you took at the broad population level, like the Cochrane study, the data are less firm with regard to the effect on the overall pandemic. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about an individual's effect on their own safety. That's a bit different than the broad population level.
Dr. Fauci, look back and reflect and tell me, how would you do it differently with regard to kids? I am of the opinion that we erred on the side, this is probably inartfully said, of physical health, not emotional health, and that putting our kids within parameters in the pandemic was not in their best interest. Do you share that perception, and if not, why?
So, Michael, are you referring to the closing of schools and the negative impact
Yes.
that has on development
Yes.
and mental health? Yeah,
I am.
Well, certainly
Yeah.
when we were dealing, Michael, with the tsunami that we saw earlier on in the pandemic, when things had to be shut down because we were having hospitals that were overcrowded and we were having freezer trucks in front of hospitals in New York and other cities because we had no place to put the bodies. That was a very, very dramatic situation that needed something immediately to stop it.
And there you have it, folks. While it's unnerving to think that masks may be brought back with a vengeance, we also see more and more people realize that they didn't really make that much of a difference. But what are your thoughts on this? Will you comply? Make sure to get into the conversation, as I think that's the best way to hash things out between opinions. By the way, if you're not already following me on Twitter and TikTok, hit the description down below and follow me on both Twitter and TikTok. Before I go, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one.